We are Islamic Republic, Part 61. Congress rule were the Muslim interest safeguarded. The election results created more problems than they solved. The British had promised to protect the rights of Muslims. However, the Muslim League became increasingly concerned that those rights were being ignored as the British desperately tried to get the new provincial governments up and running. Congress was able to form the governments in seven and a year later in eight provinces out of the 11 provinces. But it laid the condition of waiving the governor's special authority to protect minority rights, and this was accepted by the British. Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah expected Congress to include a few Muslims in the provincial governments. After all, it claimed to represent all groups. The 1935 Act seemed to require the inclusion of minority members so far as practicable. Congress refused to include the members of the League unless they joined Congress Party. The British failed to intervene. It seemed to Muslims that their interests were being willingly sacrificed in order to ensure that the provincial governments took office. The Congress used its new power to further upset Muslims. Congress flags flew from public buildings, and a Hindu nationalist song, Bande Mataram, encouraging the expulsion of Muslims, became the new national anthem. A basic education scheme introduced by Gandhi at Wardha for the Congress ministries made Hindi the medium of instructions, removed religious education, and made cotton spinning by hand a part of the curriculum. Muslims living under Hindu government felt harassed. They saw these moves as an attempt to negate their culture and identity. One local board in the central provinces instructed Urdu schools attended by the Muslim boys that the pupils should be made to bow to the portraits of Gandhi. Even their language was undermined. Here was evidence that even with legal safeguards, Muslims could not trust the Congress to protect their rights. The arrogant, hotline attitude of the Congress governments after the 1937 elections convinced more Muslims that Qaid-e-Azam, as Jinnah was now popularly known, was not wrong in his judgment of the threats to them under Congress rule. Well, in spite of all the differences with Congress, the Muslim League cooperated with the Round Table consultation. The Government of India Act 1935 provided for provincial autonomy and federal government. The Muslim League scored poor results in 1937 elections. Congress refused to include Muslim League ministers in government. British government was unwilling to challenge Congress over treatment of minorities. The move towards the autonomy and democratic self-government served to emphasize the serious differences between the League and Congress. Increasingly, Congress' antagonism towards the League dismayed Qaid-e-Azam. Because of its hostile attitude, he was now firmly realistic that the two could not cooperate. After a brief time in London, he had returned to India to work full time for the Muslim cause. The appeal of separate state along this, the appeal for separate state altogether was to grow stronger. Pakistan was now on the horizon. Well, as we talk about the leadership in Pakistan, we certainly come across some very interesting facts.